Welcome back to Unveiling the Truth. We're your host, Nefer.
And Nelly, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of Saint Quotes.
Yes, so without further ado, let's go on Unveil the Truth.
Okay, so like we said, we're going to be doing part 2 of Saint Quotes because they say the coolest things, they have the coolest ideas. Some of it explains the faith for us, some of it explains forgiveness for us, gives us hope, things like that. And so we think that this is really cool. And there's tons of them. Yeah. Tons of them. So we think that this is a really cool way to share and evangelize. That came right out of saints' mouths, Yes. That's just like the coolest way. Like, what better to learn about the faith than out of the mouth of a saint,
Yeah. Words of advice from the professionals.
Yeah, literally, exactly. Words of advice from the professionals. So, once again, she's going to read one, I'm going to read one, then back and forth. So, we hope you guys enjoy the wisdom from the saints.
Okay, so our first quote is from St. Augustine, and he says, "Pray as though everything depended on God. Work as though everything depended on you."
Mm-hmm.
And this quote, it's actually funny. Before we started recording, we were talking about the quotes, and I told Nelly, like, it says pray as though everything depended on God, but like it actually does though. Mm-hmm. Although I think what St. Augustine is actually trying to tell us is not that it doesn't depend on God. It's like, think of it as a hypothetical. It's more so like, really bring this to your mentality and think about it, because not only is it hypothetically, like, it's actually, everything does depend on God.
Right, yeah, so. Exactly. Well, and not just that, it's like you're putting your faith in God and then working through that faith here on earth. Like you can raise the sail. I mean, you can like ask God to provide wind for your boat, but you also got to raise the sail so that it affects it. So it's the same way. You got to work hard to get anywhere in this life, but you also got to pray like it depends on God.
We have to put our part into it as well.
He also came out with a really good quote that I love, and it says, God loves all of us as if there were only us.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite quote by St. Augustine. I love St. Augustine so much. He's just like the GOAT. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So mine is actually a St. Ignatius quote, and this is when this is the first time that the Catholic Church was ever called Catholic, and he says, "Wherever Jesus Christ is, there is the Catholic Church." Ooh, and that was the first time, and that was the first time it was ever documented that the Catholic Church being called Catholic. Just because, like we mentioned before in another video, they had all these teachings and the traditions of the apostles, and they followed what the apostles taught, but this is the first time it was ever documented that it was officially called Catholic. And the way he said wherever Jesus Christ is, there is the Catholic Church, he wrote something cool about that I actually learned from Father Chacon, is that he calls it the Catholic Church as if it was known amongst the people. Yeah. Like that they already knew what the Catholic Church was. So it's like, this isn't the first time it was called Catholic Church. It was called Catholic Church before he even said this, but this is the first time it was known to us that it was called Catholic Church.
This is the first time it's documented on paper, but the way he talks about it, it's not like he's introducing this concept.
Exactly.
It's like, he talks about it like, this is no knowledge. This is common knowledge amongst the people.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting that the church never really knows how far back it was called Catholic. Yeah. But this is the first time it was documented, and it was 110 AD.
Yes, so that was still pretty early.
Yeah, pretty early.
Cool. So our next one is Mother Teresa. "Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier."
Oh, that's cool.
And so this is just kind of like advice on how we should be living and being examples of the Christian faith to other people. Right. Like, if someone comes to you and then they're kind of sad and hurt and broken after that, it's like, my girl, you got to evaluate.
Yeah, well, you never know if God is sending that person to you in that time to take care of them. You never know when someone could be one smile away from being saved from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what could be going on. So that's a good one.
Yeah, that actually is really cool, because it just kind of makes you, it also makes you love everybody around you too. Yeah. Like, you really have to look at people through the eyes of Jesus. I think that's the best advice I can ever be given, is look at others and love others the way Jesus would. Yeah. So if you see someone crying, if that was your child, wouldn't you go over and comfort them? Like, you wouldn't just be like, oh, well, it's not my problem. I'm not worried about it. So yeah, that is really good. I like that. Okay. This one is by St. Augustine of Hippo, and it's, "Faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe."
Ooh.
So that means always go by faith.
Doubting Thomas is out there, listen up.
Yeah, literally. That's cool. And we talked about this in another video, is that whether you believe that the doctrines of the church or not, it's still there. It's still the doctrines. It was still divinely inspired. It's the truth. No matter what, it's the truth. And he's basically saying faith is to believe what you do not see. But then the reward of this faith is that you'll eventually come to the conclusion of it. If you really have faith and if you're really interested in the truth, you will find the truth in the Catholic Church. Yeah.
And also just kind of like you believe in Jesus and you don't actually see the person of Jesus walking the way we do. But then if you hold on to that faith and you hold on to the faith of the loving Father, you'll, God willing, go to heaven.
Right.
Yeah. Right? And then actually be able to see Jesus.
Yeah, see, that's
that's the guy.
You're like, so you were what I was holding out for on heaven all this time.
So you're who I've been receiving in the Eucharist this whole time.
Exactly.
Nice to meet you. You know,
yeah, or it could be like seeing Jesus in others too.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of things that I had to have faith on, and then the older I got, the more it made sense to me to where it wasn't an issue anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
This next quote is from St. John Vianney, and he says, "If people would do for God what they do for the world, my dear people, what a great number of Christians would go to heaven."
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty much like we put in our effort on things that aren't really worth it. But if we put in that same effort into something that's worth it, which is God, then like, there'd be a lot of us in heaven right now.
Well, oh my gosh, think about all the money people spend on getting plastic surgery, making themselves look better, getting the best clothes. Imagine if that money was put into orphanages or Catholic charities and things like that, you know? Imagine how much different the world would be. It's literally, my mom and I were talking about this today, it's literally the small things that count, like tip the waitress, put the shopping cart back, like pray for the people. Like, it's just little small things that really change the world. Little sacrifices you make on purpose that might be tiny to you literally cause a ripple effect. Because if think about that, one good deed is amazing, but if every person in the world did one good deed, that's a million good works, you know? It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Cool.
Next is by Saint Padre Pio, and he says, and this is regarding the Eucharist. 1,000 years of enjoying human glory is not even worth 1 hour spent sweetly communing with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament.
Wow. Really shows just how important.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat that. 1,000 years of enjoying human glory, that means glory on this earth, what makes us happy, is not worth even an hour spent sweetly communing with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament.
That's talking about the importance of adoration.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely visiting adoration, doing consistent adoration. Yeah, so it's really important because we receive Christ in the Eucharist, but it's also important that we actually spend time with Him and spend time with His presence. Because sometimes, we go to Mass, we receive Eucharist, and then, 10 minutes later, Mass is over and we go off and we do our own things. That tends to happen. So that's why adoration is there for us, to really take that time and be with Him. Right. Pray in His presence, read the Bible in His presence, just talk to Him and just vent out.
Well, He's literally there for us. He literally came in the form of bread for us. He came as that humble being for us. No other religion gets this. No other religion gets to actually have Jesus present with them. And it was funny because I was listening to, my mom was telling me something the other day that she read from the book 33 Days to Morning Glory, which we need to talk about. That's a really good book. But she said that it was basically Jesus at the Last Supper said, "Do this in remembrance of me." And he also said, "I will be with you until the end of time." Would anybody and he knew it was his last day on earth. Anybody in their right mind who knew it was the last day on earth would say what they wanted to say, would say what's important, and would put in their will what they wanted to be done. That's exactly what he did. And he said, "I will be with you till the end of time." And he meant the Eucharist. Yeah. And that's basically his last will and testament here on earth. The last day he was here,
That's true, because also, like, you think about his last words where he talks about, it is finished. It's like the holy sacrifice of the lamb.
Right. That we were supposed to continue.
And even in that last moment, he gives his mother to us, which kind of like what you said, when people are in their last moments, they do the absolute most important things, say what they absolutely believe is most important.
Exactly.
And the Eucharist and Mama Mary, part of those.
Well, we're both reflected in the last one. And that's kind of cool that you say that, because he said it's finished, like the sacrifice is over, and it's the same sacrifice that he wanted the apostles to continue for us. And the apostles are now our priests. And he wanted that to be continued for us. That's what's so crazy, is that nobody else get this. And I was talking to someone else about this, and they said, well, how do you know that Protestants don't, because they have communion in their churches too. So he said, why isn't it the Eucharist for them? And I'm like, because they're not in that apostolic lineage. They don't have that authority and power given to them by Jesus himself. Yeah. So as long as you follow the apostolic lineage, you can't consecrate the Eucharist. You can't hear confessions. You can't distribute the sacraments.
Yeah, you have to be within that apostolic lineage to be able to engage in all the sacraments.
Right, and only Catholics have that. It's amazing.
Our next quote is also from St. Augustine. Oh, St. Augustine's on fire today. We must understand then that even though God doesn't always give us what we want, He always gives us what we need for our salvation.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. This might sound a little off topic, but it's not. So, something that I've been thinking about right before we started recording, I asked Nellie about a movie that just came out. And one thing that, from a writer's perspective, something that storytelling has lost a lot is the importance of wants versus needs. Whereas, traditionally a story your character is embarking on what they want, but your story isn't completed until they receive what they need. And they may not always get what they want. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But what's more important is that they get what they need. That's like the true heart of character development. It's something a lot of storytellers are overlooking today, and I think is very important people remember. But it's kind of like what St. Augustine is saying, where it's like, you know, in the story that we have of our communal life with God as the author of our stories, He's like, okay, you may not get what you want, you may get what you want, it just depends on how this works out, but as long as you get what you need.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a quote that I saw, and it said, two quotes that I heard of a long time ago. They weren't by saints, but they kind of relate to this, and it said, before you question why God took someone out of your life, just remember that he heard things that you didn't hear.
Oh, yeah.
That one, and then another one was trust in God's plan for you so much that little worries don't bother you anymore. Because it's true, like, you get worried, and if you're just like, oh, it's all part of God's plan, it's part of the divine holy will, like, it's so important to live in God's divine holy will for you, because your life will be changed. You'll be completely content even in the worst stages of your life, because you know it's all part of God forming you and shaping you into the person you need to be to get to where you need to be.
Yeah, why worry about things we can't control?
Exactly.
Which I need to tell myself that every single day.
I know, it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. It's like, oh man, like, I got chocolate ice cream instead of vanilla ice cream. It's so dumb.
I want a sherbet and I'm
really, exactly. Alright, so the next quote is by Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and she says, do you realize that Jesus is there in the tabernacle expressly for you alone? He burns with the desire to come into your heart. Don't listen to the demon. Laugh at him and go without fear to receive Jesus of peace and love. And that's true, he did sacrifice himself on the cross especially for you alone. And if it was just only us on this world, if it's just me on this world, he would do it again for me and do it again for you by yourself. He had all of us in mind at the exact time that he did it. Yeah. He knew that someday we would need that grace and need that peace.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good too. I like that. The last one was from St. Padre Pio, and he says, always remain close to the Catholic Church, because it alone can give you true peace, since it alone possesses Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, the true Prince of Peace.
Wow. Yeah, that pretty much kind of sums up everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
We've all been about truth, the truth of the Catholic Church, and most importantly, the presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. Which is something that, unfortunately, a lot of Catholics have a misunderstanding on, although it's literally the pillar
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
The faith.
Like, literally, this is what Jesus instituted, the Eucharist, and the faith founded around it, basically.
The essence of Christianity. Exactly. It's, you know, just the main reason why we even believe in God and everything.
Exactly. And why the Catholic Church is different from any other church.
Yeah, exactly. No big deal.
Oh my gosh. And that's the one way that we can always say that the Catholic Church is the true church. All these Protestants seek for what's the truth. This is the only way. The Catholic Church is the only definitive truth, because it's the only church that has the body and blood of Christ. Yeah. The only church that Jesus founded himself. He saw all the way that people were like worshiping him, and he said, this is the way I want it, and this is the way I'm going to be with you forever. And if you want to be with me forever, you have to eat my body and drink my blood.
Yeah, and kind of like Scott Hahn always says, all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, like kind of what we talked about, the truth, you know, ultimately, if you want to come to the truth and you're going to come to the truth, you're going to come to the Catholic Church. So brace yourself. Buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that was basically God saying, if you want that salvation, be Catholic. Because he says, if you want life within you, eat my body and drink my blood. Well, only Catholics do that. So he's basically saying right there, become Catholic for me.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed.
Yes, please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check the link in the description to find more content like this. And yeah.
Yeah, and we're praying for you. God bless you and keep your fire burning.
Bye.